My phone buzzes against the oak of my coffee table, a small vibration that pretends it's not trying to change my life. I let it dance once, twice, then reach for it with the same reluctance I feel stepping onto scaffolding in the rain. I've just finished sanding a century-old banister. Walnut, hand-carved, the kind of work you feel in your palms before you see it. And my hands still hum with the rhythm of restoration. Another ping. Instagram. I swipe, expecting contractors, a shipment notice for lime wash, maybe a before and after from a preservation nerd I follow. Instead, the screen fills with white satin and staged sunlight. My sister, Nyla, draped in a veil that turns her into a cathedral window. The caption is mercilessly cheerful. Final fitting for the big day. Nyla and Travis. Forever after. I stop breathing. Then I start again because I have to. I swipe to the next tile. Bridesmaids holding blush bouquets. My mother's laugh set in frosting white. Cynthia in pearls, pleased like she's finally arranged the house of her life into the right furniture placement. Another swipe. Place cards, engraved menus, a chandelier I know from a restoration blog. Reclaimed glass, one of a kind. Comments stack like bricks. Can't wait. Next month will be magical. You deserve this. A cousin I haven't seen since high school writes, "See you there. See you there." Everyone, apparently, but me. The phone rings then, an old habit calling from a familiar number. Mom. I stare at her name until it blurs. I answer because I was raised to answer. "Deborah," she begins, sweet and brittle. "How's work, honey?" "Fine," I say, and the word is a plank I walk. "I just saw Nyla's dress." Silence, that powdery kind Mom uses to fade sharp lines. "Oh," she exhales. "We were going to mention, my sister is getting married. Did my invitation get lost?" "You've been so busy," she says carefully. "You know how sensitive Nyla is. We didn't want to pressure you." The room cools, or maybe I do. Outside, Portland is rinsed in late light. Wet street, moss glowing on the fence, a smear of cloud over the West Hills. "So you decided for me." "Don't make this about you," she scolds, gentler than a slap and twice as practiced. "Travis thinks family is important. We're keeping things balanced." "And I'm the imbalance?" "Independent," she tries. "Intimidating sometimes." I laugh once, a sound that echoes in the picture rails. "Right. Intimidating. Because I ask questions before people sign their lives away." She inhales like a curtain catching in a draft. "We have a lot to do. Seating charts tonight. We'll talk later." The line goes quiet before I can say the thing I've swallowed for years. "I have shown up for your family as if it were mine alone to carry." On the credenza, a jar of antique screws catches the sun and throws it in dots across the floor. I used to love this trick of light. It made me feel placed. Now, the dots look like pieces of a map I don't recognize. My phone lights again. "Jenna, you seeing this?" Marcus from work. "Call if you need air." Mrs. Henderson next door. "Dear, is everything all right?" Even the periphery knows. I stand, palms flat on the window frame I stripped last winter. The grain in the wood rises under my skin, stubborn and honest. I picture Nyla in white, our mother arranging roses, Dad, Hector, hunched by a project he'll use as a hiding place. The whole ceremony spins on an axis I'm not allowed to touch. An old film spools in my head. Nyla, age 10, crying over a broken vase. Me telling Mom it was my fault. Nyla at 17, slipping out the back door. Me distracting Dad with a question about torque. Nyla at 34, sobbing after Eric left with his cowardice and a half-packed suitcase. Me bringing over lasagna and the number of a good lawyer. And last year, my signature on a loan I'd pay back alone, while she posted desert sunsets with captions about healing. I've been the bracing that kept a wobbly house upright. Not because the house deserved it, but because it was ours. "I won't fix what you break," I whisper. And the room believes me before I do. I open Instagram again, methodical as a site audit. Unfollow Nyla. Unfollow Mom. Unfollow the cousins whose names only mean obligation now. Each tap is a nail pulled clean from old wood. No tearing, no splinters, just absence. Through the window a cyclist passes, jacket flapping, a streak of blue in the golden hour. Somewhere, a train low mourns. In this city, even departures sound like a song. The phone buzzes once more. I set it face down and let the silence draw its first true breath. This isn't revenge. This is boundary. For once, the fixer in me lays down her tools. The house of my life holds without them. Evening blooms in the windows like a bruise, violet deepening at the edges, a thin yellow seam along the horizon. I don't turn on any lamps. The room knows me in this half-light. The low-backed sofa I recovered in tobacco leather. The oak floorboards I coaxed back from gray and splintered to warm and honeyed. Everything here was once neglected. Everything here let me make it whole. My phone glows face down on the table. It still manages to speak. A soft, persistent buzz every minute or so, like a bee that forgot the way out. I give it another 5 before I give up and flip it over. Jenna. Say the word and I bring ice cream. Marcus. If you need distraction, I have a beam calc that will make you hate math again. Mrs. Henderson. I'm leaving banana bread on your step. Don't argue. There are family names in between. Cousins with confetti avatars. An aunt who only texts in exclamation points. A number saved as Rosa that I haven't used in months. The messages blur into one sentence. We saw. We know. We're excited. For a party I am not invited to. The old reflex stirs. The one that has me smoothing waters, making it easy for everyone. Pretending my absence is a scheduling oversight instead of a decision. I imagine composing a polite message to Mom. No worries, totally understand, work is wild. And the thought tastes like sawdust. I open a note instead and type 2 lines I never expected to write. I do not fix what I didn't break. I do not apologize for existing outside someone else's story. The words sit there, blunt and unbeautiful, which is what truth often is before it's polished by time. I feel my shoulders drop an inch. I carry the phone to the kitchen and set it on the island. The quartz is cool under my wrists. I fill the kettle, let the faucet run until it stops sputtering air. Steam ghosts the window as the water heats. Outside, a thin rain begins, the kind that makes the moss on the fence fluoresce under streetlight. Portland rinsing itself. When the kettle clicks off, I don't make tea. I just stand there with my hands on either side of it, feeling the metal shed its heat. I think of Nyla, small and strategic in a way that used to look like charm. I think of Travis, who decided my love of work meant a lack of love for family. I think of Mom, who held that conclusion like a lapel she could adjust the whole outfit around. On the fridge, a magnet holds a snapshot from a different life. Dad in his shop, sawdust freckling his forearms, me laughing at something out of frame. Hector taught me to measure twice and cut once, to let the tool do the work, to respect a board's memory of what it once was. Somewhere along the way, we started applying those rules to people who didn't want to be measured. The front door rattles gently. I open it to find Mrs. Henderson's promised loaf wrapped in a dish towel printed with strawberries. The towel is mine, one I left at her place last spring after fixing a sticky lock. She has returned it with butter. I smile despite myself and set both on the counter like offerings. Back in the living room, I finally answer Jenna. Rain check on the ice cream. I'm okay. She replies immediately with, okay. I look at the ceiling, its antique medallion I stripped with a brush the size of a toothbrush. Okay means choosing quiet. A miracle, she writes. Proud of you. The word proud lands where it should have years ago and never did. Another text arrives from an unknown number, but I know the cadence. We can explain, it reads. Don't be dramatic. That last sentence is the family shibboleth, the key that once opened the door to my compliance. It doesn't fit the lock anymore. I delete the message without responding, then power the phone down. Not do not disturb. Off. Silence, not courtesy. I walk the perimeter of the room the way I do at job sites, checking lines, noting where trim meets wall, listening for the click that means something is out of true. The house answers me with the small, honest noises of settling. I answer back with my own, a long breath, the creak of my knee, the whisper of fabric as I sit. Identity, I am learning, is not a list of what you repair. It's a boundary around who you are when everything breaks. Out the window, the rain intensifies, each drop making a tiny crown before it disappears. I think about forgiveness and realize it doesn't always look like a hug on a front porch. Sometimes it is a refusal to keep playing a role someone else cast you in. Sometimes it is letting the storm pass without sending a boat. When the room is fully dark, I stand and switch on a single lamp. Warm light halos the walnut banister resting on sawhorses near the wall. Tomorrow I'll sand the last stubborn patch where old varnish clings like denial. Tonight, I let it be. I put the phone in a drawer and close it, the small slide of wood on wood, as final as any vow. The fixer in me is still here, steady hands, patient eye, but she finally knows the difference between a cracked railing and a cracked promise. One I can restore, the other I can release. The drive out to Forest Hill feels like threading a needle through rain. The wipers beat a steady metronome as I climb into a neighborhood where houses keep their secrets behind hedges and original glass. I park in front of my parents' Victorian, Queen Anne bones softened by a century of weather, and sit for a breath with my hands on the wheel. The porch gingerbread still curls like lace at the eaves. The stained glass transom throws bruised colors onto the wet steps. It's the house that taught me to love what time refuses to ruin. The garage door is cracked open. Inside, Henry stands over a sawhorse, pretending the piece of maple in his grip requires all his attention. He hears my car but doesn't look up. Avoidance has the precise, practiced posture of a man who has spent decades hiding behind projects. I step out, pull my jacket tight, and walk up the drive. Dad. Debbie. His eyes flick to mine and then away, like a shy animal. Your mother's inside. Of course she is. The screen door complains when I open it. Inside, the house smells like coffee and cinnamon, Clara's domestic perfume for difficult conversations. She appears in the kitchen doorway, already composed, hair smoothed, pearl studs catching the light. Deborah. She arranges my name as if it were a table setting. I was just about to call you. No, you weren't. My voice is even. I keep my hands visible, empty, like I'm approaching a skittish structure I don't want to spook. Why wasn't I invited to Nina's wedding? Clara's smile is the kind that asks a room to behave. Honey, it's complicated. You're always so busy. We didn't want to burden you. Try again. She moves to the counter, touches cups we both know she won't use. Trevor thinks family is important, she says, lightly, as if remarking on the weather. He's traditional. You can be intimidating. Because I ask questions before people sign things they can't afford. I let the words sit on the butcher block. Because I have a job I love? Because I don't confuse enabling with love. Her mouth tightens. We just wanted peace. You wanted quiet. I tip my head at the seating chart stacked on the sideboard, names looped in her precise script. And you figured I'd be the squeaky hinge. The back door opens and Henry comes in, smelling of damp sawdust. He keeps his gaze on the floorboards he refinished the summer I left for college. I remember both of us bent over these planks, the lesson about letting the tool do the work, about following the grain. I wonder when he started ignoring the grain in people. Don't make things harder than they need to be, he says to the wood. For who? I ask. For Nina? For Trevor? For you two? Clara draws herself taller, pearls bright in the kitchen light. We didn't want drama, Deborah. You can be very direct. The word you're reaching for is useful. I step closer, and my voice softens because softness can be sharper than a shout. You excluded me from my sister's wedding. That's not about my tone. That's about control. Her composure flashes, a hairline crack across glaze. Nina is sensitive, she says, the family liturgy. She's been through so much. Trevor brings stability. Trevor brings a story you prefer, I say. One where I'm the problem and he's the solution. Silence beads in the room like condensation. Henry clears his throat. He said, "You don't seem to care about family." The sentence is a door I've been pushing against for years. It swings open onto a room I don't want to walk into again. I look at my father. Who picked me up from Nina's apartment at 2 a.m. for 6 months after Eric left? Who babysat every weekend so she could reset? Who signed a loan I am still paying because she needed a chance? No one answers. The kettle clicks off on the stove, though none of us remembers turning it on. Clara tries a new angle, warm and reasonable. We thought it would be easier for everyone. I nod once, not because I agree, but because I finally understand. Ease is the altar. I'm the sacrifice. You could have said we don't want you there. At least that would have been honest. Her hand flutters. Mother bird, broken wing. Don't be dramatic. There it is. The old password. It doesn't work on the lock anymore. I'm not here to persuade you, I say. I'm here to be clear. I won't be your problem or your solution. Not this time. Henry looks up then, startled, as if I've moved a load-bearing wall he assumed was permanent. Where are you going? Home, I say. Back to the life I built that no one else paid for. Clara's eyes sheen, but the tears are a theater I've attended too often. We're family. Families tell the truth, I say, stepping back. They don't erase people to keep the picture pretty. I turn before the magnet of old roles can pull me back into orbit. At the door, I pause, palm on the cool brass of the original knob. I hope the wedding gives you the quiet you wanted, I add. Just don't mistake quiet for peace. Rain needles my face as I cross the porch. Behind me, the stained glass throws a tired red across the threshold. In the garage, Henry stands exactly where I left him, a man braced against a workbench that can't teach him the thing he most needs to learn. I raise a hand. He almost raises his, then lets it fall. In the car, I sit for a moment and listen to the engine's small, sympathetic hum. The house recedes in the rearview. Paint, trim, glass, all the surfaces I know how to heal. I put the car in gear and let the road carry me downhill, away from the museum of our habits, into rain that rinses even the name I used to have in this family. Quiet isn't peace, but it's the first condition peace requires. Rain slicks the windows of the Copper Lantern Cafe, turning the street outside into a watercolor wash of headlights and motion. Inside, everything smells like espresso and the faint ghost of cinnamon. I slide into a corner booth near the back, the one with the view of the street but far enough from the counter to stay invisible. Jenna spots me before I can wave. She's been my constant since college, the kind of friend who knows when to talk and when to simply appear. She sets a latte in front of me without asking. "Extra shot," she says. "You look like someone who's been staring at ghosts." Close enough. She sits across from me, dark hair in a messy knot, sleeves rolled up, the kind of unpolished ease I envy. "So, you went?" I nod, fingers circling the cup. The heat is a comfort I don't deserve. Forest Hill. Mom did her best hostess impression. Dad hid in the garage. And Nina? Didn't see her. I sip. Didn't need to. Jenna leans forward, her bracelets whispering against each other. What did they say? That I'm intimidating, that I work too much, that Trevor thinks family's important. I set the cup down hard enough for it to clink against the saucer. Apparently, I'm the imbalance in their perfect picture. She exhales slowly. Same script, new cast. I smile without humor. At least they're consistent. Jenna studies me for a beat. Then she unlocks her phone, thumbs through her messages and turns the screen toward me. Speaking of consistency, look familiar? The photo fills the screen before I can answer. Trevor, my sister's devoted fiancé, his arm around a blonde woman in a red dress. Another image, his hand on her thigh, their faces too close, his lips brushing her hair. My stomach tightens. When? Last night, downtown lounge. She scrolls. My coworker, Kelly, took these. Didn't know he was that Trevor until she saw your sister's name trending on her feed. For a moment, the cafe noise fades. The hiss of the espresso machine, the laughter at the counter, even the rain's steady percussion. There's only the flicker of the phone screen, the proof of something I already knew in my bones. Do you want me to send them to you? Jenna asks. I shake my head. No. Her eyebrows lift. You're not going to tell her? No. Deb, he's cheating on your sister. She's walking into a disaster. I know. The words are calm, and the calm surprises me. But I'm not the one who gets to fix it. Jenna leans back, studying me as if she's trying to solve an equation with a missing variable. That's not like you. Maybe it's finally like me. I pull my cup closer, watch the steam curl into the air. Every time Nina's fallen apart, I've been the net. I held her through the divorce, paid for the cafe, covered her bills when she forgot to send rent money. And what did it get me? A ghost seat at her wedding. She doesn't deserve you, Jenna mutters. It's not about deserve, it's about choice. I trace a drop of coffee across the table with my fingertip. If I warn her, she'll defend him. She'll say I'm jealous or controlling, and when it all collapses, I'll be the villain again. I'm done being the family's designated redemption arc. Jenna's mouth softens. So you're just going to watch? I'm going to not interfere. There's a difference. She studies me, then smiles, slow and approving. You've finally learned the art of doing nothing. Doing nothing is harder than it looks. Outside, the rain intensifies, drumming on the awning. A couple rushes past under a shared umbrella, laughing, oblivious. I follow their movement until they vanish around the corner. Forgiveness doesn't always look like rescue, I say quietly. Sometimes it's letting someone face the consequences without cushioning the fall. Jenna nods. And who forgives you? I look down at my reflection in the coffee's surface. Tired eyes, a faint trace of sawdust still on my cuff from work, a life that's starting to look like mine again. I'm working on it. She reaches across the table and squeezes my hand. Then maybe that's the first thing you finally fix for yourself. I smile. A small, real thing. Maybe. When I leave the cafe, the rain has stopped. The clouds have thinned enough for a slice of pale sun to catch the wet street, turning every puddle into a mirror. I see myself reflected in one for a moment, steady, quiet, unbroken, and then I keep walking. The morning of Nina's wedding arrives as a pale wash over the West Hills, a sky the color of unprimed plaster. I wake before my alarm and don't touch my phone. Instead, I lace up my work boots and decide I'll spend the day the way I know how, coaxing order out of damage. By 8, the banister I've been restoring lies across sawhorses in my living room like a sleeping animal. I mask the treads with tape, open the windows a crack, and begin with the orbital sander on low. Patient, even passes. The walnut releases its dull skin in fine curls that float and settle, a snowfall of past decisions. With my respirator on, the world narrows to grain and sound. It is a relief to make something better that actually wants to be better. Around 10, I break for water and wipe the dust off my sleeves. The house is quiet in that honest way old houses are. No music, no chatter, just the small tick of the kitchen clock and the distant whoosh of traffic where Hawthorne meets Cesar Chavez. I tell myself not to imagine the other clock running today, the one that orchestrates hair appointments and boutonnieres, the flurry of Clara's lists, and the way she must be vibrating with purpose. I tell myself not to picture Henry aligning a tie in a mirror he restored with me once, his hands suddenly clumsy. I fail a little, then go back to sanding. By noon, I switch to handwork. There's a stubborn patch of varnish in the crook of a carved volute that refuses to let go, the way certain stories refuse to be rewritten. I soften it with solvent, wait, scrape. Patience, then motion. The trick is knowing when to press and when to pause. At 1, I make a sandwich I forget to eat. The bread goes dry at the edges while I stand at the sink and watch a ribbon of sun muscle through the cloud cover. In another part of this city, white flowers are being pinned to dresses, and a quartet is rosining bows. A venue in the West Hills, Ridgeview Estate, I heard Clara say once, like the name itself could confer virtue, will be filling with people who think they know our family. I take my sandwich to the window seat and finally pick up my phone. No notifications yet, which feels like a reprieve and a dare. It starts at 3:17 p.m. with a single buzz. Jenna, are you home? Another buzz. Marcus, don't look unless you're ready. Then the sound becomes a steady tremor, a fault line loosening under plaster. My lock screen stacks previews faster than I can breathe. I open the first video because I am not a coward, or because I still haven't learned what to leave alone. Shaky footage. A ballroom. White roses, gold accents, the sort of staged opulence that photographs better than it lives. Guests flanking the dance floor. At the center, Nina, a veil lifted and forgotten, lipstick smeared into a brave curve. Trevor stands opposite her, jacket unbuttoned, tie hanging like a loose decision. The caption? OMFG West Hills wedding gone wrong. I turn the sound up. The room's murmur is a storm brewing in a glass. Nina's voice, thin and bright with disbelief, cuts through. You knew? Another angle in a different clip, someone closer this time. Trevor's mouth a hard line. You set me up, he shouts. For a second I think of the photos Jenna showed me. The blonde in the red dress, the way proof always feels both heavy and insufficient. Nina pushes his chest, open palm, no real force, the gesture of a woman trying to move a wall. He lifts his arm, not a fist, not a hesitation. The flat crack of his hand on her cheek is louder than it should be, louder than music, louder than the chorus of gasps as the room inhales all at once and forgets how to exhale. I drop the phone to my lap and it keeps playing, the screen angled toward the ceiling's medallion. Someone yells for security. Someone says, "Call the police!" A camera catches a blur that must be Henry moving, another blur that might be Clara frozen, the way porcelain freezes right before it fractures. I pick the phone up because I need a different angle. Any angle that makes this untrue. There isn't one. Messages bloom like bruises. Jenna, I'm coming over. Marcus, I'm so sorry. A number I don't recognize with a local news logo. If you have a statement, I close the app and it vibrates in my hand, ravenous. Part of me, an old, obedient part, lurches to stand. Car keys, shoes, the route to Ridgeview plotting itself in my muscle memory. But the newer part, the part that is learning to be silent without being small, keeps me seated. I place the phone on the window seat cushion and watch it skitter with each new alert. I think of promises people make under chandeliers. I think of the grain of wood and how it records every pressure, every season, without commentary. I think of Nina, my sister, being humiliated in a room she thought would save her, and my chest tightens with a compassion that doesn't erase anything before it. When the phone finally rings instead of buzzes, the screen says, Clara. It's 3:41 p.m. I don't answer. Not yet. The call rolls to voicemail. Another call follows, then another. From a cousin, from an aunt, from a number that might be the venue. I stand and look at the banister on its horses, at the place where the old varnish finally let go. Outside, a breeze lifts the wet leaves on the maple and flips them like coins. The city exhales a damp, metallic scent that means rain again before evening. I sit back down. I don't move toward the door. This isn't indifference. It's a boundary I've sanded to a smooth, load-bearing line. The phone starts ringing again. I let it. The house holds. So do I. The sky outside my living room has gone that deep indigo Portland does so well. Half night, half reflection. The city hums under a light drizzle, the kind that hangs in the air instead of falling. I sit in the same window seat where the day began, though the light has shifted, and so have I. The phone on the coffee table buzzes once, then again. Clara's name fills the screen, glowing pale in the dark. I don't reach for it. It rings through to voicemail, then again. Then a text. "Please, Deborah, it's your sister. She needs you." I stare at the message until the words blur. The video from earlier replays in my mind in jittered fragments. The shock on Nina's face, the handprint blooming against her skin, the blur of chaos behind her. Every instinct I've been trained to obey rises like muscle memory. Get the keys, drive, fix it. But that part of me, the fixer, feels like someone I buried this afternoon. The phone rings again, louder this time, vibrating itself toward the edge of the table. I catch it before it falls. "Mom," I say before she can speak. "Deborah," her voice cracks like thin ice. "It's bad. She's at the hospital. She's asking for you." "She has you," I say quietly. "She needs her sister. She needed her sister last month, when you planned her wedding without inviting me." The line stutters with her breathing, uneven and ragged. "Please don't make this harder." I close my eyes. "You made this harder. Every time you told her I'd fix it. Every time you turned my help into expectation. You raised us on the idea that love is obligation. I can't keep paying that price." A sound escapes her. Half sob, half sigh. "Deborah, she's your family. She's your daughter. She's both of ours." "No," I say. "She's the version of me you preferred." There's silence then, the kind that stretches long enough to test your conviction. Finally, she whispers, "I can't believe you'd abandon us." "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm stepping out of a fire I didn't start." She inhales sharply, wounded, and hangs up. The call ends with a click that feels final, like a nail driven home. I set the phone down. It buzzes again seconds later. Another text, this time from Henry. "She's stable. We're at St. Joseph's. Call when you can." I read it twice. The message is simple, factual, free of guilt. Maybe that's all he has left to offer. The street outside is wet and quiet. A lone cyclist coasts through the intersection, his taillight pulsing red across the puddles. Somewhere, a siren fades into the hills. I pour a glass of water, then another of wine. The glass leaves a ring on the coaster, a pale outline of a circle, an unfinished story. My reflection stares back at me from the window. Tired eyes, steady posture. The same woman who once thought love meant intervention, now learning that love sometimes means restraint. I imagine Nina in a sterile room, mascara rinsed away, her voice small for the first time. I imagine Clara sitting beside her, telling the nurses everything except the truth, that she chose silence over fairness long before tonight. I whisper, "I hope she finds her way." It's the only prayer I have left in me. The phone is still on the table. I let it ring once more before switching it to silent. The act feels sacrilegious and sacred all at once. For the first time in 35 years, a crisis in my family unfolds without me rushing toward it. The absence of motion feels heavy at first, then liberating. I lean back into the cushions, let the rain tap against the glass, and let the house breathe around me. My chest unclenches, my pulse slows. Forgiveness, I realize, is not the same as rescue. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to let others rebuild their own wreckage, while you finally learn to stand in the stillness you've spent a lifetime avoiding. The storm arrives at dusk, a slow bruise spreading over the neighborhood until the streetlights blink on like cautions. I've been moving quietly around the house, putting tools away, vacuuming the last beard of sanding dust from the baseboards, when someone knocks, not the neighbor's polite double tap, a steady, penitent rhythm. Through the peephole, Henry. No umbrella, rain darkening his jacket to near black, hair plastered in silver commas to his forehead. For a long second, I consider not opening the door. Old muscle memory twitches. New resolve keeps my hand at my side. He knocks again, softer. I open the door halfway. "Dad." "Debbie." His voice is smaller than I remember, the sound of a man who has finally run out of workshop to hide in. "Can I come in a minute?" I step back. He crosses the threshold and leaves a damp footprint on the mat, then another on the oak. It bothers me in the tidy way small things do, but I let it be. He stands there shivering, eyes not quite meeting mine, and pulls a thick manila envelope from inside his jacket. The flap is softened with rain. "What's that?" I ask. "Everything," he says, and the word lands like a load dropped onto joists. He sets the envelope on the dining table I refinished last winter and carefully opens it, as if the paper has teeth. Inside, bank statements, copies of checks, a loan packet with color tabs, HELOC in bold on the cover page. He slides the first sheet toward me with 2 fingers like it might explode. "We told you we were behind on the house," he says. Not quite a question. "You did?" The room tightens around my ribs. "You said you needed help with the mortgage." He nods, rainwater slipping from his collar. "We used your money for this instead." A gnarled finger taps the loan document. "A home equity line. A big one." "How big?" He swallows. 195. I steady my hands on the chair back, and the checks I sent every month went here, he finishes, already ashamed. 1,100 for 4 years. Numbers line up in my head like studs. "That's 82,400, I say, and the air between us changes temperature. I pull another page closer. My mother's neat cursive angles across the signature line. Another name appears beside hers where it shouldn't. "Nina," I read. "She co-signed?" Henry flinches. "Clara told the bank Nina was living at the house. Said it was temporary. Said it would help the rate." His voice drops. It wasn't true. I pick up the stack and skim the withdrawals, the transfers, the neat holes punched through my balance and into their account. Where did it go? "The kids. After Eric left." He says it like a reflex. "Then the cafe mess, attorney fees, a deposit on that Ridgeview place when they thought they'd need to book early." He looks at the floor. "Your mother wanted Nina settled. Said Trevor had standards." I picture the chandelier, the roses, the hand across my sister's face. The math doesn't care about any of it. It just totals. He watches me count my breaths without speaking. When he finally does, the words come out rough. "I'm sorry." I don't answer. Not yet. I take the envelope to the sideboard, snap photos of every page with the deliberate patience my job has taught me. Documents first, feelings later. Henry's breath hitches, but he doesn't protest. When I'm done, I stack the papers square and return to the table. "Why now?" I ask. He presses a palm flat to the wet jacket over his chest, as if steadying the beat. "The bank sent a notice this week. They're calling the balance due. We can't refinance after what happened at the wedding made the news. He falters, searches for a sturdier plank. "I couldn't keep it from you anymore." Lightning lifts the room for a white second. The thunder follows, less dramatic than expected. "You lied," I say, quiet and exact. "You both did. You used my help to keep a story going." He nods. The motion is small, a hinge that needs oil. "I did. I let your mother tell it and I didn't stop her. That's on me." The old Deborah feels the tug, the urge to fix, to calculate a plan, to make it all less terrible with tidy steps and immediate calls. The new one keeps my weight centered. "Here's what happens next," I say, because boundaries, once sanded smooth, can hold load. I'm documenting everything. Tomorrow, I talk to a mortgage attorney. You and Clara will bring any remaining paperwork. No edits, no surprises. He swallows again. "We'll bring it. And you call Aunt Rosa." I slide my phone across the table. "She's the one person in this family who tells the truth even when it costs her. She's there when we meet." He nods, a relief flickering through the shame like a match strike. "She'll come." "We're going to make this right," I add. And the words taste different than they used to. Not rescue, restitution. Not to protect anyone's comfort, to tell the truth on paper. He glances toward the window where rain slicks the glass into a mirror. "Your mother will say you're overreacting," he warns softly, a habit he can't put down. "She can call it whatever helps her sleep," I say. "I'll call it what it is." He looks up then, eyes wet from the weather and something older. "I never wanted it like this." I know. And I do, which is worse in a way. Wanting and doing don't always share a roof. I walk him to the door. He pauses on the threshold, searching my face for a softness I'm not offering tonight. I open the umbrella from the stand and hand it to him. Bring the originals tomorrow, I say. 10 a.m. Here. He nods once, shoulders rounding with a different kind of weight. Thank you, he manages. For showing up? I tilt my head. That's the baseline, Dad. We'll see about the rest. He steps into the rain, umbrella blooming over him like a belated idea. I close the door and lean my forehead against the cool wood, listening to the storm's patient tap along the eaves. On the table, the envelope sits where he left it, a dull, ordinary color holding the shape of everything I refuse to hold for them anymore. I slide it into a drawer and shut it with a clean, final slide. The house settles. So do I. Morning light leaks into the house through rain-streaked glass, pale and deliberate. I wake before the alarm, as if the storm that carried Henry's confession through my doorway has seeped into my dreams. On the dining table, the manila envelope waits where I left it. Its presence hums faintly in the room, as though paper could emit sound. I stand there for a long minute, robe wrapped tight, coffee cooling between my palms, and stare at the thin black lettering. Property of Pacific Northwest Bank. It's a phrase that manages to name both the house I grew up in and the truth that's been hiding under its shingles for years. I lay out the documents in rows across the table, careful and methodical, the way I'd map a floor plan. Each sheet gets its place. Loan documents, payment records, the forged cosigner form with Nina's looping handwriting and my mother's crisp penmanship beside it. A neat crime of convenience. I grab my camera, the same one I used to photograph architectural damage before a restoration bid, and start taking pictures. Click, flash. Click. The rhythm steadies me. Each photo is a proof, each page a confession. I stop only when the last form is captured and file them into a labeled folder on my laptop. Alvarez, HELOC, Truth. Naming it that feels both clinical and biblical. Halfway through my second cup, Jenna texts, "Alive?" I type back, "Documenting. That's a new form of therapy," she replies. "Maybe the only one that works." When I hit send, a knock interrupts the quiet. I half expect the sound of my conscience manifesting again, but when I open the door, it's not Henry. It's Aunt Rosa, the one person who's never sugarcoated her loyalty. She steps in, shaking rain off her umbrella. "Your father called," she says. "Said it's time the family stopped pretending the floorboards aren't rotten." I nod toward the table. "Then he's right on time." She sets her purse down and surveys the documents like a general assessing terrain. "I told your mother years ago this would end badly," she murmurs. "Lies age worse than wood." "Tomorrow they'll all be here," I tell her. "You too. 10 a.m. Wouldn't miss it." Her eyes move over the stack of statements. "You going to charge them interest?" "I'm charging them honesty," I say. "For once." She snorts softly. "Good. They owe you plenty of that." When she leaves, I return to my laptop. The screen glows with a draft email to Marcus, my coworker at the restoration firm who somehow became an ally without asking for the role. I attach a handful of the photos. "Need you to take a look. Mortgage fraud protocols. Discretion required." His reply comes 10 minutes later. "On it. I know someone at the bank. Quietly." The weight in my chest loosens just enough to make room for air. I print 3 sets of the documents, one for myself, one for Rosa, one for the truth. The printer hums with the sound of inevitability. By afternoon, I'm at my drafting table, though no blueprints spread across it, just a legal pad where I outline tomorrow's conversation. My pen moves like a scalpel. Present facts. Refuse emotional bait. Require acknowledgement. Secure restitution. For years, I let guilt dictate every word between us. Tomorrow, facts will. Rain resumes outside, steady, unromantic. I glance toward the window and think of Clara, still rehearsing excuses somewhere in that Victorian kitchen. Of Nina, perhaps still nursing a bruise that isn't only physical. Of Henry, who had at least had the courage to knock. The sound of my phone cuts through my thoughts. Marcus again. Everything checks out. They misrepresented residence on the loan form. It's actionable. If you need statements notarized, I can refer someone. I type back. Not yet. Tomorrow I'll give them a chance to tell the truth themselves. He responds with a single word. Careful. I glance at the printed pages spread across my desk. Careful has never been my problem. Silence has. As twilight folds over Portland, I close my laptop, stack the folders, and place them in a satchel by the door. Tomorrow's meeting feels less like confrontation and more like demolition. Necessary, controlled, and long overdue. Before heading to bed, I pour a last glass of water and stand at the window. The city lights smear through the drizzle like brushstrokes. Somewhere beyond those lights, the house I grew up in is still standing. Ornate, fragile, full of secrets I'm finally ready to air out. I whisper to the glass. Tomorrow, we start rebuilding, but this time, with the rot exposed. The rain agrees, tapping its quiet applause against the pane. Saturday morning arrives dressed in gray. The rain has moved east, leaving the air scrubbed clean, sharp with cedar and wet asphalt. I've been up since dawn, setting the table like a stage. Not with food, just facts. The documents sit in 3 neat stacks across the oak surface, weighted at each corner with mugs so they don't curl. My camera rests nearby, battery charged. Across from the table, 2 chairs wait side by side like reluctant defendants. At 9:55, a soft knock precedes Aunt Rosa's entrance. She steps in with her usual composure, hair pinned back, wearing a raincoat that has seen as much truth as she has. She takes in the layout, nodding once. You've done your homework. Someone had to. She squeezes my arm. Remember, don't let emotion bargain with logic. Understood. At 10:02, the doorbell rings again. Through the window, I see them. Clara, clutching a leather purse like armor. Henry, gaze fixed on the ground. And Mina, standing half a step behind, a silk scarf hiding the faint bruise that still shadows her cheek. The sight strikes me. Proof that damage lingers even when you try to dress it up. I open the door. Come in. Clara hesitates first, her expression pinched and practiced. We're here, Deborah, but I hope this isn't going to be a spectacle. It's going to be a conversation, I reply evenly. That's all. They file in. Rosa closes the door behind them with quiet finality, the kind of sound that says no one leaves until the truth does. No one sits at first. They hover, unsure of their places in this new geometry. Finally, I gesture to the table. Please. Clara lowers herself into the center chair. Henry sits beside her, shoulders bent. Nina perches on the edge of her seat, hands clasped. The room is silent except for the rain dripping from their coats onto the hard wood. I remain standing. These, I begin, touching the top of the nearest stack, are the bank documents for the home equity line you took out 4 years ago. $195,000, signed by you, Mom, and by you, Nina, claiming residency at 4319 Belmont Avenue. Clara clears her throat. I don't know why you're turning this into, please don't interrupt, I say, my tone polite but edged. You told me those payments were for the mortgage. I sent you $1,100 a month for 48 months. That's $52,800 in principal and $29,600 in interest and late fees, all of it based on a lie. Mina looks from her mother to me, confusion blooming. Wait, what? You told me it was a refinance. Clara exhales sharply, like she's shedding patience. I simplified. We were protecting the family's home. Your sister wanted to help. I wanted to help, I correct, not be stolen from. Henry's voice breaks the tension, low and rough. She's right, Clara. Clara whips toward him. Don't you start. He cuts her off, surprising us both. No, I've let this go too long. Deborah deserves to know everything. We used her money to cover your debts, Nina. The cafe loan, the legal mess with Eric, even the deposit for the Ridgeview venue. Nina's face drains of color. You what? Clara straightens, defensive instinct snapping into place. She's your sister. Family helps family. I lean forward slightly. Family doesn't forge signatures, Mom. Family doesn't lie about where their children live to get better rates. That's fraud. The word lands hard. Henry flinches. Nina presses a trembling hand to her scarf. For a moment, no one speaks. The silence is so complete, I can hear the rain easing against the window panes. Finally, Clara says, softly but stubbornly, I did what I had to do to keep us afloat. You kept yourselves afloat, I reply, by tying a stone to me. Rosa clears her throat gently. Clara, Henry, this can be fixed, but only with honesty. You can't build anything stable on rot. You both know that. Henry nods, almost grateful for the cue. We'll make it right. The side lot, we'll sell it. The money can go to Deborah. Clara's lips tighten. That property's worth a fortune. Then it'll cover part of what you owe, I say. You don't get to keep comfort built on deception. She opens her mouth, but nothing coherent comes out. Her eyes flick from Henry's face to mine, then to Rosa, realizing she's outnumbered by truth. Nina stands, sudden and shaky. I didn't know, Deborah. I swear. I thought it was just paperwork. I never would have signed if I'd known. I study her face. The exhaustion there is genuine, raw in a way that defies pretending. I believe you, I say, but believing isn't the same as forgetting. The tension in the room thins, not gone, just breathable. Rosa exhales. We'll contact a notary and start the transfer. I'll handle the paperwork myself. Clara sinks back into her chair, defeated but silent. Henry nods, his eyes damp but steadier than I've seen in years. I gather the documents into one clean stack and place them in the center of the table. I don't want apologies, I tell them. I want truth and peace. That's the only repayment I need. No one argues. Outside, a patch of sunlight finally breaks through the clouded sky, scattering gold across the table. It falls on the papers like benediction, bright and indifferent. For the first time in years, I feel the house breathe evenly again. We sit there for a long time after the words fade, as if the house itself needs to absorb them before it can decide what to do next. The silence isn't the brittle kind we've always known. It's heavy but breathable, like air right before the first thaw. Henry is the first to move. He reaches for the stack of papers and squares them neatly, his fingers trembling but sure. We'll sign the side lot over, he says quietly. There's no sense in dragging this further. Clara doesn't look up. Her hand rests on her purse, thumb tracing the seam in slow circles. That property is part of our retirement, she says, the words small and defensive. I meet her gaze. Then think of this as a down payment on the truth. Her lips press into a line. It's not agreement, but it's not denial either. Aunt Rosa nods once, approving, and pulls a small notebook from her bag. I've already spoken to a friend at First American Title, she says, flipping through pages. We can do a quick claim deed for the lot today. Henry, you'll both need identification and signatures. Deborah, you'll need to sign as recipient. Clara bristles. You planned this? Rosa's voice is calm but firm. I planned for you to finally tell the truth. The rest is just logistics. The air shifts again. Less tension, more gravity. Henry exhales slowly, the sound of surrender, and looks to my mother. Clara, we've done enough damage. Let's just make it right. Her shoulders sag, as if something inside her has been deflating for years and finally gives up. Fine, she whispers, if it ends this. I watch her for a long moment. The woman who built her life around appearances now sits in the wreckage of her own facade, still trying to keep her hands clean. I almost feel sorry for her. Almost. Nina, I say softly. She looks up, startled to be addressed, You'll get through this. But you can't build another life on someone else's credit. Not mine. Not anyone's. She nods, tears brimming. I know. I'm so sorry, Deborah. Be sorry to yourself, I tell her. Then change. Rosa rises, gathering the papers into a folder. Let's go, she says to Henry and Clara. The sooner you sign, the sooner you start sleeping again. Henry stands. Clara doesn't move right away. When she finally does, she pauses by the doorway. You really don't want the house? She asks, her tone softer than it's been all morning. I shake my head. No. That place belongs to your story, not mine. I just want closure. She studies me for a heartbeat longer, then nods, reluctantly, but it's something. They leave together, Henry steadying her arm down the steps. The sound of the car starting fades into the rain-wet distance. Nina lingers behind, fidgeting with her scarf. Do you hate me? She asks quietly. I sigh. No, but I hate what we all became trying to keep Mom happy. She lets out a shaky laugh that breaks halfway. That's fair. Do better for your kids, I add. That's how you'll make it right. I will. She turns toward the door, then hesitates. You're stronger than all of us, she says. But I guess you had to be. Maybe now I just want to be free. When she leaves, the house settles into the kind of stillness that feels earned. Rosa returns 20 minutes later, cheeks flushed from the cold, a folder tucked under her arm. She sets it on the table and opens it. All signed, she says. Quick and clean, the deed's yours. The stack of papers inside gleams faintly under the light. Proof of restitution, or maybe just the end of an era. I trace the edge of the document with one finger. I don't need their property, I say. But I needed this moment. The truth written down, official, notarized. Rosa smiles, tired but proud. Truth has weight. Best to set it on paper so it stops pressing on your chest. I nod, closing the folder. It's done then. She squeezes my hand. It's started. When she leaves, I stand at the window again. The afternoon has turned pale gold, the clouds breaking apart over the skyline. The rain-soaked streets shine like fresh varnish, as if the city itself has been restored. For the first time in my life, I feel a kind of inheritance I can actually keep. Not land, not money, but the power to decide what peace looks like. I whisper to the empty room, this is what freedom sounds like. And for once, the silence that answers feels like agreement. 2 weeks later, Portland's spring light has started to soften at the edges. The rain is less constant now, breaking into short, thoughtful showers. In the gap between them, the air smells faintly of earth and cedar. At First American Title, the conference room is all glass and silence. A small fern in the corner looks like it's doing its best to stay alive under the fluorescent light. I sit at the long table, a manila folder in front of me, waiting. The door opens. Henry and Clara step in together, followed by Aunt Rosa, carrying her leather-bound planner like scripture. My parents look older than they did 2 weeks ago. Maybe honesty ages people in fast forward. The notary, a brisk woman in gray, adjusts her glasses and smiles in the efficient way professionals do when they've seen enough family drama to know when not to comment. We'll just go through each page, she says. It's straightforward. We all take our seats. Rosa lays out the paperwork. The side lot on Belmont is being transferred to Deborah Alvarez in full, she recites quietly, in exchange for release of any claims related to the prior financial misuse. Clara flinches at the phrasing, though she doesn't argue. Her lipstick looks too deliberate, a small shield against exposure. Henry keeps his gaze on the table, hands folded tightly together. The notary slides the first document forward. Henry Alvarez, please sign here. He takes the pen, hesitates for a fraction of a second, then signs in careful cursive. When he finishes, he slides it toward Clara. She stares at the line for so long the air itself seems to wait. Then, slowly, she adds her name, still graceful but trembling at the edges. Finally, the notary turns to me. "Your signature, Ms. Alvarez." I sign without ceremony. My hand is steady. It doesn't shake the way it did when I wrote checks every month into a void disguised as family need. When the pen clicks shut, it sounds louder than it should. The notary collects the pages, presses her seal, and slides copies to each of us. "That's it," she says. "Everything's official." Clara exhales, a thin thread of sound, then reaches for her purse. "So, it's done." "It's begun," Rosa corrects her gently. Henry nods, and when he looks at me, there's something new in his eyes, a kind of fragile peace. "I'm sorry," he says quietly, "for all of it. I should have spoken sooner." I study him for a long moment. There's no script for this kind of forgiveness. "Thank you for showing up," I finally say. "That's more than most people do." Clara stands abruptly. "I suppose we should go," she says, tone clipped. But then she pauses, fingers tightening on her purse strap. "I never meant to hurt you," she adds, eyes flicking toward me. "I know," I say. "You meant to control me. The hurt was just collateral." Her mouth opens, then closes again. There's nothing left to defend. She turns toward the door, and Henry follows. Rosa gives me a small nod before leaving last, closing the door behind them with a soft finality. For a long time, I stay seated, staring at the embossed seal on the document. My name printed cleanly beside theirs. Not above, not below. Equal weight. The notary gathers her things, pauses at the doorway. "Congratulations," she says. "It's not every day people sign something that actually sets them free." I smile faintly. "Thank you." When she's gone, the quiet stretches open like a new room in a familiar house. I trace the outline of my name one more time, then slip the deed into my bag. Outside, the air has shifted. The city smells like wet stone and new beginnings. I walk slowly to my car, past a row of maple trees just starting to leaf out. The sunlight hits the wet pavement, scattering a brief shimmer like scattered glass. In the car, I don't start the engine right away. Instead, I sit with my hands on the steering wheel, feeling the weight in my chest begin to lift. For years, I've mistaken fixing for loving, endurance for loyalty. But love, I realize now, can be as simple as releasing something that was never meant to be yours to carry. I take one last look at the building through the windshield. The reflection of the clouds drifts across its glass facade, impermanent, ungraspable, honest. Then I start the car and drive toward home. The following week, work feels different. Not easier, just cleaner. At the Portland Heritage Restoration Office, sunlight angles through the high windows, illuminating sawdust in the air like particles of memory. My gloves smell faintly of linseed oil and pine, the perfume of my real life, the one I built without apology. The project is a 1912 brownstone near the river. Its interior beams are strong but fractured, warped slightly by decades of moisture and neglect. As I measure the cracks, I can't help thinking how familiar it all feels. Decay disguised as history, weakness mistaken for charm. "Hey, you need another set of hands?" Marcus's voice carries from the doorway. He's holding a clipboard, coffee in the other hand, wearing that half grin that always looks like an inside joke. "Only if you can follow instructions," I say. He laughs. "You saying I can't?" "I'm saying you like shortcuts." He shrugs, setting the coffee down on a stack of planks. "What are we fixing?" I gesture to the cracked joist near the window. It's split clean through. The load's still being carried, but barely. He crouches beside it, runs a hand along the break. "Could sister it with steel plates. Bind the split, let the structure remember what strength feels like." I nod slowly. That's exactly what I was thinking. We work quietly for a while, the air filling with the muted percussion of hammers and the rasp of sandpaper. It's the kind of labor that demands presence, each movement deliberate, each strike meaningful. When the beam is braced and secure, Marcus straightens, stretching his back. You've been quiet, he says, glancing at me. Everything okay with your folks? They signed the deed. His eyebrows lift slightly. Wow, that's something. It's closure, I say, wiping dust from my gloves. Not forgiveness yet, but maybe it's a start. He studies me for a moment. You seem lighter. I pause, testing the weight of that word. Lighter, yes, but not empty. He grins. Progress. I return the smile. Progress. By afternoon, the rain starts again, soft and rhythmic on the scaffold. The sound is steady, almost meditative. As I step back to inspect the beam, sunlight breaks through just long enough to catch the wet edges, turning the repair line into a shimmer. It's subtle, but it's beautiful. Proof that fracture doesn't always mean failure. Later, at home, the scent of wood dust still clings to me. I set my tool bag down and notice the folder from the title office still resting on the sideboard. I haven't opened it since that day. I pull out the deed and run my fingers over the embossed seal. The paper is heavier than it looks. I realize it's not just property, it's proof of boundary. The first thing I've ever owned without guilt. The doorbell rings. Jenna, of course. She's holding takeout and a bottle of wine. I brought dinner, she says. You look like someone who forgot to eat again. I laugh. You're not wrong. She sets the food down and eyes the folder on the table. That it? The deed, I say. She exhales. So it's over. Maybe not over, I reply, pouring 2 glasses. Maybe just settled. We eat in comfortable quiet, the kind of silence that doesn't demand filling. At one point, she raises her glass. To the fixer who finally learned to stop fixing. I clink mine against hers, to foundations that actually hold. After she leaves, I step out onto the porch. The rain has stopped, leaving everything glistening. The city hums softly, traffic, laughter, the low rumble of the streetcar. I breathe in the damp air, heavy with the scent of moss and renewal. Inside, my phone buzzes, a text from Henry. The transfer cleared. Thank you for handling this with more grace than we deserved. I type back. Thank you for facing it. I don't hit send right away. I stare at the words until they feel right, then press the button and set the phone aside. Tonight, the quiet isn't a wall. It's a space. Open, livable, mine. Sunday morning unfolds quietly. No alarms, no calls, no deadlines. Just light spilling through the sheer curtains, catching dust motes in their slow drift like suspended time. For once, the house feels still in a way that isn't heavy. It just is. I make coffee and sit by the window with my notebook, the same one I used for measurements and restoration sketches. Lately, it's been filling with something else, thoughts I never had time to notice. Boundaries, forgiveness, silence that doesn't punish. I'm halfway through a page when my phone buzzes on the counter. The name on the screen freezes me for a second. Nina. The message is short. Hey, I've been thinking about you. Can we talk? For a long time, I just stare at it. My instinct to brace, always the first impulse, doesn't come. I sip my coffee, read the words again. No demands, no manipulation, just a question. I type back. Depends what kind of talk. Her reply comes fast. An honest one. I owe you that much. I lean back in the chair, watching a small patch of light slide across the hardwood floor. Part of me wants to protect the quiet I've finally earned. Another part, smaller but steadier, knows closure isn't a single event. It's a practice. I type, tomorrow, my place, noon. The 3 dots blink, then disappear. The single word follows. Okay. I set the phone down, exhaling slowly. The decision feels like stepping onto a bridge I built but never crossed. That evening, I walk down to the riverfront. The air carries the faint metallic scent of rain on concrete. Downtown glows across the water, amber reflections rippling in the current. A street musician plays a slow, wandering tune on saxophone, the kind that makes the city sound lonely and alive all at once. I stop at the railing and rest my hands on the cold metal. For years, I thought forgiveness was a door you opened for someone else. Now I realize it's a window you open for yourself, to let the air move again. When I get home, I find an envelope wedged between the door and the frame. No return address. Just my name, written in Henry's handwriting. Inside, a single sheet of paper. A short note. Deborah, your mother asked me to mail this after the title cleared. I don't know what she wrote, but she wanted you to have it. Be well. Dad. A smaller envelope is tucked inside, sealed. I set it on the table and stare at it for a while before opening it. The paper inside smells faintly of rosewater and something older. Maybe dust from a drawer never meant to be opened. Clara's handwriting is as neat as always, the loops precise, the lines unbroken. Deborah, I know you'll think this is too little too late, and maybe it is, but I want you to understand that everything I did was out of fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of being judged. Fear that if I didn't manage everything, it would all fall apart. You were always stronger than I knew how to handle, and I resented that strength when I should have been proud of it. I don't expect forgiveness, but if you ever wonder whether I loved you, the answer is yes, just not well. Mom. I read it twice, once as the daughter who still wants an apology, and again as the woman who finally stopped needing one. I fold the letter carefully and slide it back into its envelope. There's no anger left, only the faint ache of what could have been. Later, I sit on the porch with the letter in my lap. The neighborhood hums, distant traffic, a dog barking, the faint hiss of wind through wet leaves. Life going on. Tomorrow, Nina will come. And this time the conversation will happen on ground that doesn't tilt beneath my feet. I tuck the letter into my journal, between two blank pages, and whisper into the cooling air. I hear you, Mom, but I'm finally learning to love me. Well. The wind rises just enough to rustle the porch plants, like an answer. By noon the next day, Portland is wrapped in a steady drizzle, the kind that softens sound and turns every surface reflective. I've opened the windows just enough to let the smell of rain inside. Earth, cedar, iron. The knock comes exactly when she said it would. 3 taps, hesitant but clear. When I open the door, Nina stands there with her hair damp and curling at the ends. Her scarf is gone today. The faint bruise along her cheekbone has faded into a muted shadow. She's holding a small wooden box, old and scuffed, clasp tarnished from years of use. Hey, she says softly. Hey. For a moment, neither of us moves. Then I step aside and she walks in, eyes darting around as if reacquainting herself with a place she's never really seen before. It smells like lemon oil, she says, smiling faintly. Habit, I reply. I was polishing the banister. She glances toward the living room, where the newly restored wood gleams under soft light. You finished it. Finally. We sit at the table. She sets the wooden box between us. The silence is fragile, not hostile, like a space waiting for the right words. I found this in Dad's old dresser, she says. He said it belonged to Grandpa, said it should go to you. I brush my fingers over the lid. The grain is smooth but worn, like something passed through many hands. Why me? Because you're the one who keeps things working, she says, then adds quickly. Not because you have to anymore, because you choose to. I open the box. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, is an antique pocket watch, silver, scratched, but still beautiful. I press the side, and it opens with a soft click. The second hand moves, steady and unhurried. It still runs, I murmur. I had it cleaned, Nina says. I thought maybe it should belong to someone who knows how to take care of time. For a while, we just listened to the faint ticking filling the quiet. I read Mom's letter, I say finally. Nina nods. She asked me if she should send it. I told her yes. She's trying, in her way. She's afraid, I reply. That's been her language my whole life. She told me the same thing, Nina admits, that she used control to keep from disappearing. I close the watch and set it gently back in its box. You don't have to repeat her story. I know. Her voice cracks a little. But I don't want to hate her either. You don't have to. I take a breath. Just don't become her apology. Tears spill over, quiet and unashamed. She wipes them quickly, laughing through the blur. You always sound like someone who's lived twice as long as me. Feels like it sometimes, I say, smiling faintly. You okay? She nods. Better than I've been in years. I left my job at the cafe. I'm starting a course at PCC next month, graphic design. I figured it's time to build something that's mine. I study her face, the resolve there, fragile but real, and realize how much she's changed since the day she stood outside my door with excuses and fear. That's good, Nina. Really good. I used some of the money Dad gave me after the sale, she says carefully. But I wanted to tell you something else. The college fund you started for the kids? I look up, surprised. How did you? Dad told me. Said you wanted it to be quiet. She smiles, watery but genuine. It's not quiet to me. It's hope. Thank you.
You don't have to thank me, I reply. That was for them, not for you.
I know, she says softly. But I'm still grateful. The rain thickens outside, drumming on the porch roof. The rhythm fills the silence that follows, a natural pause between chapters neither of us needs to define. After a while, she stands, pulling her coat tighter. Can I come by again sometime? Whenever you're ready, I say. No roles, just people. Her smile trembles but holds. She nods, then glances toward the wooden box still open on the table. Keep it somewhere you'll see it. Dad said Grandpa's watch was about patience. Time only works when you let it move. When she's gone, the house feels neither empty nor full, just balanced. The watch ticks softly, marking seconds that belong to no one but me. I carry it to the window and set it beside the plant that somehow survived every winter I forgot to water it. Outside, the rain slows, tapering into mist. In the quiet, I whisper, "It's working." And for once, I don't mean the watch. The sky clears by late afternoon, leaving the city rinsed and shining. I step onto the porch with a mug of tea and the old pocket watch in my hand. The air smells like wet cedar and clean slate, the kind of scent that feels like a new beginning disguised as weather. Across the street, the maples drip slowly, their branches jeweled with rain. A breeze moves through them in soft applause. Inside, the house hums its low, contented silence. For the first time since I can remember, there's no static in the air. No waiting for a phone call, no bracing for someone else's emergency. Just the gentle rhythm of a life that finally fits. I turn the watch over in my palm, thumb tracing the initials engraved on the back. H.A., my grandfather's. The hinge creaks when I open it, the second hand ticking like a heartbeat that refuses to rush. It reminds me that time doesn't heal. It just keeps moving until you decide to walk with it. My phone rests on the porch railing. One unread message from Henry. Your mother started volunteering at the library. Says it keeps her busy. She asks about you but doesn't know how to start. Maybe someday. I type back. Someday sounds about right. Then I lock the screen. The streetcar bell rings in the distance, a sound that always feels both near and far, like something returning and leaving at once. I breathe it in. Inside, the banister glows where the late light touches it. Each curve catches the gold hour like a reward for patience. It's perfect, not because it's flawless, but because I know every scar beneath the finish, every place where the wood fought back before yielding. Restoration isn't about erasing history, it's about teaching damage how to hold itself together again. I think of Nina, of the way her voice steadied yesterday when she said, "I'm building something of my own." I think of her kids, Emma and Lucas, whose future now sits quietly in a pair of college funds I never had the heart to explain. Some stories don't need credit. They just need continuation. The sun dips lower, turning the porch light amber. I set the watch beside my mug and take out my journal, the same one I used when all this began. The last page is still blank. I write carefully, the pen gliding like it knows this is the end of something important. The softest revenge is peace. Not silence out of fear, but silence that means I no longer owe an explanation. Forgiveness, independence, identity, boundaries, healing. These are the tools I kept when I put the rest down. I closed the journal and let my hand rest on the cover. For once, I don't feel like the fixer of anyone else's mess. I feel like the architect of my own quiet. Rainwater drips from the eaves in slow rhythm. The city smells like steel and promise. Somewhere far off, a train horn cuts through the distance, a sound that could be leaving or arriving depending on how you listen. I lift the pocket watch, wind it once, and listen to its ticking fill the space around me. Steady, relentless, beautiful. Still running, I whisper. Then I smile, the kind that doesn't need an audience, and step inside as the light fades. The door closes softly behind me, not as an ending, but as the most honest kind of beginning.